Hong Kong is full of interesting ghost stories. Tonight, we have two pretty scary ones shared by a woman. Let's call her Maggie. Maggie is in her 30s now, but these two incidents happened to her when she was young, 2nd grade to be exact. She no longer sees spirits now that she's older. The things she's seen at the time have haunted her since. Maggie remembers this incident so vividly, not just because it was so creepy, but because of how normal it all felt to her at the time. She didn't really notice anything was wrong until later on. She was only in the 2nd grade when it happened. Her parents had pulled her out of school for a few days because a family friend had passed away. This family friend lived in a rural part of China, so Maggie and her parents had to travel up from Hong Kong to attend the funeral. They took a bus up to Samzan first, then had to transfer to another one at a big terminal. It was at this station where a string of strange events started to unfold for Maggie. Maggie remembers it so clearly. While she and her parents were waiting for that next bus, she met a little girl. The girl looked to be about her age, maybe a little bit older, so Maggie called her Jie Jie. That's what we call a girl that's older than us. In Cantonese, it translates to older sister. The two of them hit it off right away. They spent the whole time at the station just running around, laughing, chasing each other, doing all the silly things kids do to pass the time. But eventually, the transfer bus pulls in. Maggie's parents called out to her, told her to stop running around. The bus was here. It was time to go. To Maggie's surprise, the Jie Jie was getting on the same bus. She was thrilled. That meant she would have someone to play with during the ride, and that's exactly what they did. There weren't many passengers on that bus, so a lot of the seats were still empty. Maggie remembers leaving her parents in the front. They were trying to nap, and heading toward the back with the girl to keep playing. They ran around the empty rows, giggling, jumping between the seats, like it was their own little playground on wheels. Her parents were not the strictest and let her do what she wanted. Time passed. Eventually, they arrived at their destination. Everyone got off the bus, and Maggie followed her parents toward a small hotel nearby. Or, it was more like a motel really, just a simple place to spend the night before attending the funeral the next morning. It was in the middle of nowhere, but close enough to the bus stop that they could walk. As they made their way there, Maggie noticed that the Jie Jie was still with them. She was walking in the same direction, a little bit behind them, but it seemed like she was heading toward the same place. Maybe she's staying at the same hotel, Maggie thought, excited. It never crossed her 2nd grade mind that something was off, that this Jie Jie didn't seem to have any parents with her. She was just quietly walking by herself. The hotel itself wasn't anything fancy. The room was on the 3rd floor, and Maggie remembers it clearly because it had a small balcony that overlooked the front of the building. That night, she kept going in and out between the room and the balcony, peeking over the railing, then ducking back inside, and then giggling. Eventually, her mom got annoyed. "Maggie, why do you keep running in and out? Settle down." Maggie replied, "Mommy, the Jie Jie that took the bus with us, she's still downstairs. She didn't come up. She's standing down in the front." Her mom looked confused. "Who? What are you talking about?" She walked over to the balcony and glanced down at the front of the hotel. There was no one there. "Maggie, there's no one outside. Get your butt inside and go to bed," her mom said. But Maggie was sure. She saw that Jie Jie standing right down there, as clear as day, in a matching Hello Kitty t-shirt and shorts outfit. "That's enough, Maggie," her mom said, a little more firmly this time. "Get back inside." Maggie went inside reluctantly, and her mom followed, sliding the balcony door shut behind them. The next morning, Maggie and her parents got dressed. They made their way to the funeral. It was for a close family friend of her parents, someone important to them. But to Maggie, this person was basically a stranger. Maybe they had held her once or twice when she was a baby, but she had no memory of them. This was Maggie's very first funeral, and to a 2nd grader, everything felt strange and new. The clothes, the incense, the somber mood. She was more curious than sad. Before they went in, Maggie told her mom she needed to go pee. Her parents were busy greeting other family members who were arriving now too, so her mom just nodded and told her to go ahead. Maggie went off on her own. She went to the bathroom and did her business, and just as she was stepping out from the toilet stall, she noticed an older auntie standing in the bathroom, looking right at her. The auntie was smiling. "Hey Maggie," she said cheerfully. "You're such a good girl. You came all the way up with your parents too?" Maggie didn't recognize her at all. She had no idea who this auntie was, but since she knew her name, she assumed it was one of her parents' friends. Maggie, being polite, just smiled shyly and nodded. Then she turned and quickly ran out of the bathroom, heading back out to her parents. When Maggie found her mom again, she tugged on her sleeves. "Mommy, Mommy, I met an auntie in the bathroom. She said I was a really good girl for coming." Her mom, still chatting and mingling with the other adults, barely looked down. "Oh yeah? That's so nice, honey." Then she turned back to the conversation. Soon, it was time for the funeral to begin. Everyone lined up, moving slowly, one family at a time, toward the casket to pay their respects. When it was Maggie's family's turn, her mom picked her up gently, and they walked together toward the front. Her mom leaned in and whispered, "Alright, sweetie, say farewell to Auntie Lynn. She bought you a lot of toys when you were a baby. She was always so kind to you." Maggie looked down in the casket and froze. It was the same auntie she had just seen earlier in the bathroom. Maggie went completely still. Her heart was pounding now. She might have only been in the 2nd grade, but she was old enough to know what death meant. She understood that if someone was lying in a casket, they couldn't also be chatting with you in the bathroom minutes before. So how? How is this even possible? Fear rushed in. Maggie couldn't look anymore. She turned her face into her mom's neck and clung tight, too scared to say anything. The rest of the funeral passed by in a blur. Once it wrapped up, they headed back to the hotel to grab their things and began the long journey back to Hong Kong. Once they got to the bus stop, guess who Maggie saw there again? It was the same Zeze she saw the day before, still wearing the same Hello Kitty outfit. "Mommy, look, the Zeze is still here," she said, eyes lighting up. "She's getting on the bus again too." Her mom, now clearly unsettled, gently put a hand on her shoulder. "Honey, I think you should sit with me and Dad on the bus today, okay? You're really tired. I think you need a nap." And honestly, her mom was right. Maggie was exhausted. The travel, the funeral, the strange emotions, it had worn her out. So this time, she stayed up front with her parents. No running around. She curled up beside her mom and fell asleep for most of the ride back to Samsan. But somewhere behind them, at the very back of the bus, the Zeze was still there, waiting for Maggie to come back there to play with her again. So Maggie didn't find out about this next part until she was much older. But after they got off the bus in Samsan that day, while Maggie was still half asleep, her mom went quietly around asking the station staff, security guards, attendants, anyone who might know. She asked if they have ever seen a little girl, maybe around Maggie's age, hanging around the terminal alone. One of the older station workers hesitated, then told her something. A little girl had passed away here not too long ago. She had been hit by a car just outside the station, a tragic accident, and she was around the same age as Maggie. So what do you guys think about this incident? It's a common belief in Asia that people are all born with a third eye, a spiritual perception. But as we grow older, this third eye closes. This explains why a lot of children are able to see spirits, while most adults can't. Young kids are pure and less bound to logic or the material world, so they are thought to remain open to unseen forces. Also, kids are more intuitive and less skeptical. They aren't conditioned yet to ignore or rationalize strange experiences, so it's said that they can perceive spiritual presence more easily than adults. Do you guys think this is one of those examples? Was Maggie's third eye still open when she was in the 2nd grade, giving her the ability to see the Zeze and the auntie? Maggie's experiences doesn't just end here. She has another pretty chilling story that she shared. This one happened only a few months after the Zeze incident we just shared, and it happened during Hungry Ghost Month in Hong Kong. I've briefly talked about what this month is in prior episodes, so I'm just going to move on to the story for now. But I can talk more about this event at the end of this episode in more detail, for those of you who are interested. So Maggie came home from school one day with nothing to do. Her mom asked her to come downstairs to help her burn joss paper, offerings for the dead. It was during Hungry Ghost Month, so this kind of thing was pretty normal. Maggie didn't think much of it and said, sure, since she had nothing going on anyway. Her mom carried the old metal bucket they used for burning, and Maggie followed behind, lugging 2 plastic bags full of joss paper and other little paper goodies, fake money, gold ingots, and even tiny paper shoes, all meant to be sent to the spirits in the afterlife. As they made their way downstairs, her mom gave her a serious look. "Alright," she said, "when we're burning the offerings, do not run around. Don't say anything disrespectful. Just stay by my side and behave." Maggie, being her usual cheeky self, nodded, but not without a little deal-making first. "Okay," she said, "but only if you buy me candy after." Her mom laughed. "When did you become such a little negotiator?" Then she smiled. "Alright, fine. If you behave and stay close, I'll bring you to the store after we're done." Deal. Once they were outside, Maggie did exactly as she promised. She followed her mom, helped set everything up, and stayed quiet. But after a while, she started getting bored. Burning joss paper isn't exactly thrilling when you're a kid. So Maggie quietly wandered over to a nearby bench, not too far from where her mom was crouched, still feeding paper into the flame. She sat there, waiting, and just watching her mom finish burning the rest of the offerings. And honestly, she was being really well behaved, just like she promised. No running, no complaints. She just sat there quietly on the bench, counting down the minutes until she could go and pick out her reward from the candy store. As Maggie sat there on the bench, swinging her legs and watching the little fire flicker in her mom's metal basin, she started to notice something strange. People were coming over, not just one or two, but a lot of people, quietly, from seemingly nowhere. And they weren't just gathering around her mom's basin, they were crowding around all of the metal buckets where offerings were being burned. Maggie looked around. Her mom wasn't the only one burning offerings. There were a few other neighborhood aunties there too, each with their own metal basin set up along the sidewalk. But now, all of these basins were surrounded. Dozens of people have gathered. They stood so close, staring down at the flame, not speaking, not blinking. It was like they had appeared out of thin air. Looking back as she's grown up now, she's pretty sure what she saw that day were a ton of spirits, gathering to collect the offerings. But at the time as it was happening, these all just looked like normal people to her. After the burning was done, Maggie and her mom walked to the candy store, just like they promised. As they strolled along, Maggie asked casually, "Mommy, why were there so many people watching you burn stuff earlier?" Her mom looked at her puzzled. "A lot of people? What are you talking about, Maggie?" "Yeah," Maggie said. "When I was sitting on the bench, I saw a whole bunch of people surrounding you. Like a lot of people." Her mom's face suddenly went pale. She stopped walking for a moment and then hissed quietly, "Wait, stop, Maggie. Don't say things like that. Not during this time of the month." At the store, Maggie picked out her candy. Her mom paid, and they went back home. That night, her mom came down with a fever. As Maggie got older, she learned more about things like this. This was pretty normal, and it wasn't anything bad, meaning nothing followed them home, thank goodness. It wasn't a curse or anything like that. In Asian culture, it's believed that spirits give off a kind of energy called yamhe, which is like somewhat of a negative energy, and if too many spirits gather too close at once, that heavy energy can overwhelm the person, which is most likely what happened as they swarmed around that metal basin that day. The next day, Maggie's mom was still feeling unwell, so she stayed home and rested in bed. It was the weekend and Maggie was getting bored, so she asked, "Mommy, can I go play outside with the other kids?" Her mom, still weak but not wanting to keep her cooped up, nodded. "Okay, just be careful, alright? And don't talk nonsense again outside." So Maggie headed down to the local park with a couple of kids from her building. It was just a typical afternoon. They ran around, played tag, and climbed on the playground bars. Around them, the neighborhood aunties were still burning offerings in metal basins. The smell of smoke and incense lingered in the warm air. As they played, Maggie suddenly said, "Hey, did you guys know that when the joss paper notes go flying in the street, you're not supposed to pick them up?" The other kids looked up at her, wide-eyed. "My mom said you shouldn't touch them. They're for the dead," she continued. Then she grinned. "But are you guys brave enough to pick one up?" The kids all shook their heads. Even at their age, they knew better. Every parent in the neighborhood had drilled it into them. Never mess with the offering paper. But Maggie? She wasn't convinced. "Well, I'm not scared," she said proudly. She marched over to the sidewalk, where some of the unburned joss paper had blown out of one of the auntie's basins and scattered across the ground. She bent down and scooped up a few of the bills in her hands. "Look," she shouted. "See? I'm not a scaredy cat like you guys." She waved the bills around playfully, flaunting them like they were treasure. Maggie eventually tossed the paper bills back on the ground before heading home. Yeah, picking them up was dumb, but she wasn't that dumb. She knew better than to actually bring them back with her. By now, it was close to 7 p.m. The sun had dipped low, and the streets were starting to empty out. Just a few kids still hanging around outside, the stragglers. Maggie decided to head back inside, but as she was walking toward her building, she noticed something. There was a man, a strange man, walking a little ways behind her. Not close, but not far enough either. She glanced back once, then again. And even at her age, her instincts kicked in. Her mom had always drilled it into her head. You're a girl. You always have to be aware. Always know if someone is following you. And today, someone was. Maggie didn't panic. She didn't run, but she definitely didn't go straight home either. When she reached her floor, she made a beeline for her friend's apartment instead, someone who lived a few doors down from hers. She didn't want this man to know where she lived. She knocked quickly. Her friend came to the door. The front door opened, but not the metal security gate yet. They spoke through the bars. Her friend started reaching to unlock it, about to let her in, when suddenly, a voice boomed from deeper inside the apartment. "Don't open the door!" It was her friend's dad, and he was rushing to the front now. He grabbed the gate, looked straight at Maggie and shouted, "Maggie, go home right now!" And then he shut the door in her face. Confused and a little shaken, Maggie looked around to make sure the strange man wasn't nearby. He was gone, so she made her way home. That night, it was her turn to come down with a fever. It hit her hard. She was weak, burning up, in and out of sleep for days. Her mom nursed her back to health, until Maggie finally recovered. Once Maggie was all better, her mom snapped. She pointed a finger at her, eyes wide with fear and anger. "Maggie, what did you do?" she shouted. "You did something you weren't supposed to do, didn't you?" Maggie backed away, startled. "I didn't do anything," she insisted. "I swear I didn't." But her mom wasn't buying it. She continued, "Do you know who came to talk to me yesterday? Your friend's dad, the one who slammed the door in your face. Do you know why he did that?" Maggie froze. She hadn't even thought about it since that night. She just assumed the dad was being mean or something. Apparently, her friend's dad has yamyongan, a third eye. He can see most things people can't, and the day that Maggie was knocking on their door, he saw something behind her. As she stood there waiting to be let in, there was a cloud of black mass hovering right behind her. A spirit. It had followed her home. That's why he yelled. That's why he slammed the door. It wasn't because of Maggie. It was because he didn't know if letting Maggie in would also let that thing in. He might have the third eye, but that doesn't mean he knows how to deal with the spirits. He's only able to see them. After the scolding, Maggie's mom didn't waste any time. She brought Maggie down to a small temple nearby, one of those quiet neighborhood ones, with incense curling through the air and the old ladies sitting behind little stalls. They stopped at one of those stalls to talk to one of the old ladies. Her mom explained what happened, that Maggie had been sick, that something might have followed her home. The old lady listened carefully and finally said, "She must have done something to upset the spirits." That's when Maggie, feeling guilty and a little scared, finally confessed. She told them that she picked up some of that Joss money and that she played with it, mocked it, waved it around before tossing it back on the ground. The old lady nodded slowly. "It's alright, little girl," she said. "It's not a huge offense. The spirit wasn't trying to hurt you, it was just trying to teach you a lesson." Still, just to be safe, her mom made a small donation. The old lady did some light prayers, burned a few more offerings, just to appease whoever or whatever might have felt disrespected. And that was that. Maggie got a few small protective talismans to keep on her. And after that, she never, ever picked up Joss paper again. Lesson learned. Alright, so as promised, I'll go back and talk a little bit about what Hungry Ghost Month actually is, for anyone that's curious. So the actual time this occurs is different each year because it falls on the 7th month of the lunar calendar. So this year in 2025, it will run from July 25th through August 23rd, with Hungry Ghost Day being on August 9th. So definitely don't stay out late on the 9th. So it's believed that during this month the gates of the underworld open up, and the spirits are free to roam the human world, to visit family, to seek food, to seek forgiveness, or even vengeance. Hungry ghosts are souls of people who died violently, alone, or without a proper burial, so they're often believed to be bitter and lost. During this time, ghost stories spike up, with people reporting hauntings and weird sightings. So that's just a little quick background on what Hungry Ghost Month actually is. Thanks for listening to this week's episode, and I'll see you again next week.